Shalom. We want to welcome each and every one of you here at our Olive Tree Fellowship Teaching Center. We are here every Sabbath live at 10 o'clock and someplace around this time for our YouTube Torah Unleashed outreach. And we say about this time because we start at 10 o'clock live and we have praise and we have a time of fellowship and prayer and different things. So we get started when we can. And so we want to welcome you, those of you that are coming in through our YouTube channel. And we hope that every one of you can subscribe and do all the stuff that they tell you to do. You know the ritual, and so please pass the word along. We want to make sure that this content of the Torah goes out to the whole world. Well, today we are in number 38, our 30th parashah, and it's called Korach. Can you all say with me, Korach? It's not Korah, it's Korach, and it goes from Numbers 16:1 to Numbers 18:32. So we have several chapters of Korach. Our parasha today has 9 themes. Every parasha has themes and teachings. And of course, we could only hit some of them. And so we encourage every one of you to make sure you read the parashah before you come in and then after you come in and you leave home and that you continue studying it. And if you have any questions, again, you're welcome on Wednesday nights to come as we have our Wednesday night live teaching. And we have different questions, answers, and studies. So you are welcome. So today it's pretty much the rebellion of Korach, Dathan, and Abiram, and the punishment that Adonai gives to them. But we're also going to go today into the apostolic writings, especially what Paul and Peter, the writer to the Hebrews, say about leadership. Today's study has to do with leadership. It has to do with disobedience, with rebellion. And that's not only in the first covenant scriptures, the Tanakh, the Torah and Tanakh, but it still applies today. It still applies in congregations today. And of course, there's all kinds of different, Christianities, and even within the Messianic groups, different teachings on what is leadership and what is not leadership. And there's a lot of rebellion still within the body. In fact, many congregations are actually started because of rebellion. And there are many congregations whose pastor rebelled against some other pastor and started a new congregation on their own. And so what we need to do is also understand what is the proper way of separating from a congregation? What is the proper way of coming to start a congregation that is biblical, not just with theology, not just with doctrine, but biblical in the idea of I want a congregation where the leadership, the people that make it up, is not because they rebelled someplace and are coming here, but because Adonai is dividing in the sense of starting something new every son and daughter at some point in time is going to divide from us. They're going to leave us in a good way when they get married. And they're going to go and start their own family. Technically, every one of us here should be members of the congregation and not be here all our lives. I would love if every one of you here would be so looking at the idea of evangelism and congregational planting that you all at some point in time break up into little groups and start 5, 6, maybe 7 congregations out of this congregation. And then from that congregation start other congregations. That's multiplication. And Adonai wants us to multiply. But some congregations, like what Korach wanted to do, he wanted to have everybody the same as Moses and Aaron. Well, let's look at some of the things that we want to do here. Vayikach Korach in Numbers 16, 1-3. We read that from our Torah scrolls this morning. And he took, Vayikach Korach, ben Itzhar, ben Kehat, ben Levi, and Datan, and Avriam, Bnei Eliav, and On, ben Pelet, Bnei Reuven. So Korach was the great-grandson of Levi. Now remember, Levi are the Levites, and they had a place in the body of Moses. They had a place, and their place was to be able to carry the ark and all the things that had to do with the Mishkan, with the tabernacle. And so they had a ministry. They were ministers of the Mishkan. Now, they joined with sons of Reuven. Now, the thing about Reuven is, Reuven, if you remember, is the oldest of all the 12 sons of Yaakov. He is the oldest. He is the first of with Leah. And so maybe he had this idea, oh, wait a second, I'm the firstborn of the whole bunch. Therefore, I should be able to lead. Now watch what it says. They rose up. They rose up before Moshe. They stood up to Moses. With certain of Bnei Israel, 250 Nasi. Remember what a Nasi is. A Nasi is a leader, one of the chiefs. There was 12 chiefs of the one for every 12 tribes. But then they had these other Nasi that were under them. And they were leaders in the community, the Edah, the community. And they demonstrated themselves against Moshe and against Aharon, against Moses and Aaron. They demonstrated. They had a demonstration. They stood up against them. They rose up against them. I don't know if they had placards or anything like that, like they do today. But they rose up against Moses, and they said unto them, you take too much upon yourselves. You take too much upon yourselves. Well, wait a second. Moses isn't taking anything upon himself that Adonai didn't give him. What Adonai gave to Moses, Moses took. What Adonai did not give to Moses, Moses did not take. And that's one of the ideas of leadership. You only take what Adonai gives you. You don't take more. You definitely should not take less. You don't take more, though. You only take what Adonai gives you. But all of a sudden, what we have here is we find out that these men, Korach and company, they have this spirit, this ugly spirit, and we're going to look upon that even in the New Covenant scriptures. It says, you take too much upon yourself, seeing kol ha'edah, all the community are kadoshim. Kadoshim is kadosh, holy or set apart. The whole community are set apart. Now, that is not true. Yes, the whole community should be set apart, but in any community, not everybody is set apart. Even within our community here this morning, every one of us should be set apart unto Adonai and set apart from the world, but everyone is at a different place. In fact, there's some people that are not set apart, and as Paul talks in 1 Corinthians, they are carnal believers. They are still in the world. They're still baby believers, if you will. So he comes here and he's trying to say, wait a second, everybody's the same. There's no such thing as leadership. We're all the same. We should all have an equal voice in a sense. Every one of them, and Yahweh is among them. Yes, Yahweh is among them, as we're going to see. Why then lift up yourselves above the Kahal Yahweh? In the Greek, this is the Ecclesia Yahweh, the assembly of Yahweh. Why do you guys lift? No, Moses is not lifting himself up. Moses is actually, we are told, one of the most humblest of all men. He would not lift himself up before the whole assembly. He wasn't that kind of a leader. He was a humble leader, a gentle leader, the way leaders need to be. And so we have this tension now. Moses and Aaron doing what I'd only call them to do, and then these men, even leaders, even the firstborn son, Reuben, coming against the Elohim ordained leadership. Now again, in today's world, there's a lot of people that do not believe. They say, oh, there should be no clergy and laity. There's always been clergy and laity, and always will be clergy and laity. There's no such thing as a congregation without clergy and laity, as we're going to see. And so Korach, Dathan, Abiram, On, again, son of Levi, and the other three, sons of Reuben. And 250 leaders of the congregation, prominent at the Moedim, men of repute. They were people that were in the Moedim, in the assemblies, in the meetings. They held leadership. They weren't just the bottom. They were way up there on top. And they are the ones that rebelled against Moses. They were Levites, leaders of the congregation, called ones in the assembly, men of renown. They had a name, they had a good reputation. But today, that reputation, that prominence that they had, died out, and their true colors came out. Their true hearts were exposed on this day. Now, first covenant leadership, the leadership in the ancient covenant, the first covenant, the Mosaic or Sinaitic covenant as we call it, that leadership was made up of, number one, Moses. Moses was the leader, the chosen leader. Adonai called him at the burning bush and called him to lead Israel out. But if you remember, he had elders under him. He had Nasim, chiefs, under him. He had Shofetim, he had judges over him. Moses had a team of elders for all the 12 tribes, and each tribe was subdivided, and there was leadership, and there was judges that Adonai used to judge on a daily basis. But we also had the Aaronic leadership. Moses did most of what had to do with the administration of the 12 tribes. The Aaronic, or Aaron's leadership, had to do with the Mishkan, with the tabernacle. There was the Kohanim, the priests, the Leviim, the servants. The Kohanim today would be more like the pastors, and the Leviim would be more like the deacons. And then later on, we are given Davidic leadership, which is kingship. Now, during Davidic leadership, there was still the Mosaic elders, chiefs, judges. There was still the Kohanim and the Leviim. Now, after 586, when Judah was taken captive, most of the Mosaic and Aaronic kind of went away for 70 years, and the kingship left. And when they returned from captivity, there was no kingship, and pretty much the Mosaic and the Aaronic took over. And then in the Second Temple period, we have what we call different kinds of leaders. We have secular kingship, the Herods under Roman administration. We have temple supervision under the Sadducean. Now, the Sadducees were of the priestly group, the Kohanim, but they were not kosher priests. They were priests that had married foreign women. They were priests that probably their line wasn't straight to Aaron. And so it was governed by these men. Then there was the Sanhedrin. Now, the Sanhedrin was a Sanhedrin of 3 in different cities, a Sanhedrin of 23, and then a Sanhedrin of 71 in Jerusalem. And so this was like a national eldership. And when things came up at this time in the Second Temple period, whether it was administration like in the Mosaic or Aaronic and the religious section, it all went to the Sanhedrin. And then we have the synagogue. Now, the synagogue was like a national, what we would call a Sunday school. Can you imagine if there was like a national Sunday school for Christianity, where people, lay teachers, lay Sunday school teachers, the rabbis were not ordained at the time. The rabbis were just what we would call today lay teachers, Sabbath school teachers, if you will. And they made themselves great, which is what the word rabbi means. People say it means teacher, but Rav means great. And so a rabbi is a great one. And they're great ones because they made themselves. Now, Yeshua is the only rabbi who's called a rabbi by someone else. He never called himself a rabbi. People said he's the great one, and he was. And he was the first rabbi. After that, people started calling themselves, by the way, about the year 135 after Yeshua, people started calling themselves rabbis. And of course, there was no Davidic kingship, and the kingship had to do with Roman administration. Now, The kings were Jewish, but they weren't Jewish by blood. They were Jewish by conversion. The Herods were Jewish because they had been converted to the Jewish religion of the Second Temple period. In fact, at this time, after coming back, many people converted to the religion of Judaism of the Second Temple period. Pretty much the Pharisaic way of doing things. And they demonstrated themselves against Moshe and against Aharon. And they said to them, you take too much upon yourselves, seeing kol ha'edah, all the assembly, all the congregation are kadoshim, every one, and Yahweh is among them. Why lift yourselves up among them above the kahal Yahweh? By the way, the Greek word there in the Septuagint is the word synagoga. Synagoge in this grammatical structure. The synagogue is the kahal. The kahal is also the kehila. So you could call a assembly. The only word that we don't use is church, because church is not a biblical term. Church means a circle, circus, something that is round, which is like Stonehenge, and that's how it came into the King James and English Bibles. But the word for an assembly for us is either kahal, kehila, or synagoga, the assembly in English, or the meeting place. Now, here's where the root of the problem is. Vertical authority versus horizontal authority. There are two structures, vertical authority and horizontal authority. Adonai always works with vertical authority. There is always leadership and those that are led. Now, if you notice what these guys are saying is kol edah ar kadoshim. They wanted horizontal authority. They wanted more what we call today a congregational style of leadership. There's only 3 type of leadership styles in any corporation, any school, any hospital, any in the military. There's only 3 types of authority. Episcopal, missing the S there. Episcopal, Presbyterian, and congregational. We see that especially in Christianity. The Roman Church, the Episcopal Church, and many churches are Episcopal. They're run vertically. Now, Presbyterian is the rule of elders. Congregational is when the congregation rules. The Baptists today are congregational. Of course, the Presbyterians and many others are have Presbyterian government. That's why they use those Episcopal, Presbyterian congregations. And so these people wanted that horizontal authority structure. Now, the spirit of Korach is seen in the early Kehillah. In Acts 20:28, Paul, to the Ephesian elders, to the presbytery in Ephesus, the elders, be on your guard for yourselves and all the flock, for yourselves, the leadership, to the elders, and the flock, you are the flock, of which the Holy Spirit has made you the overseers. You don't make yourself an overseer. It is the Holy Spirit that makes you an overseer. By the way, the word overseer here is the word episkopos. We get the word episcopal from this. Overseer. To oversee means to see over a group, a congregation. The Latin word is supra, over, vision, supervisor. A supervisor, the old English, the Middle English word is bishop, a bishop. A bishop is an overseer. To feed, to pastor, to shepherd, the kehillah of Elohim. This is not my kehillah. You are not my flock. You are his flock. My responsibility and responsibility of leadership is to oversee what's going on, to shepherd, to feed. I'm feeding you right now. I pastor, I lead, I guide. The kehillah of Elohim, which he bought with his blood of his own son. I didn't buy this. It was bought by Yeshua and his blood. I know quite well, Paul says, that when I have gone, fierce wolves will invade you and will have no mercy on the flock. Even from your own ranks, there will be men coming forward with a travesty of the truth on their lips to induce the disciples to follow them. Think of it. This is in Paul's time. After Paul died, all kinds of fierce wolves came in. They came forward with the travesty of the truth. That's why we have so many heresies out there. Because men come in with all kinds of different doctrines, different Yeshuas, different spirits, different gospels. And they'll induce the disciples. We've had people here that have come here even wanting to be elders and leaders, and some of them have been elders and leaders. They've taught behind this pulpit only to get a number of our members. One time I was in California visiting my aunt, and we had someone, and when I came back, all of a sudden they had another congregation going down the street. It still happens today. It happens into any one of our congregations. That's why Paul tells the elders in Ephesus, be on your guard. We have to always be on our guard. Because any newcomer has only to preach a Yeshua other than the one we preached. What? There's 2, 3, 4, 5 Yeshuas? Yeah, the world is full of Yeshuas. That's why we need to know which is the Yeshua that Paul preached. That's why we need to study the epistles, because he teaches about the correct Yeshua. Or receive a spirit different than the one you received. Or that's supposed to be a gospel. Boy, that secretary of mine is doing all kinds of mistakes this week. Different from the one you accepted. And you put up with that too willing. Now, I consider that I am not in the least inferior to these arch apostles. Think of it. They were calling themselves arch apostles. Paul is an apostle. He begins this, Paul apostle. An arch apostle is someone over the apostles. Just like you have a bishop, and when you have 3 bishops, you get a archbishop over the 3 bishops. And so these guys were saying, we're not only apostles, we're over the apostles. Can you imagine the audacity? Even if there is something lacking in my public speaking, Paul wasn't a good public speaker, like me. This is not the case with my knowledge, as we have openly shown to you at all times and before anyone. Doesn't matter how good or bad your public speaking is. Especially, sometimes people say, well, I'm not a good speaker. Neither was Paul. But the knowledge was different. They could ask him any question and he could answer it. Further study, go to Galatians 1:1 through 6 through 10. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Think of it. Korach, Dathan, Abiram, On, these guys. They rebelled. That's the sin of witchcraft. Witchcraft means twisted. Twisted. Have you ever gotten a hanger and got locked out in your car and you get a hanger and you open it up and you try to do it? After you do get in, try to put that hanger in the exact position. You can't do it. It's twisted. That's what witchcraft is. Something that is twisted, that can't go back. Stubbornness is iniquity and idolatry. These are prominent men. Well, their prominence just went down the drain. And the punishment of their rebellion was that the earth opened up, and they and their families, not just they and their wives and their children. Can you imagine 250 plus Korach? I could just see Korach in front of his tent. Pride, arrogance. And all of a sudden it opens up. And him and his family and all these families went down the drain. Went down into the earth. This also has Aaron's staff that budded. It was the family staff. I have a staff here. This hasn't budded yet. I've been waiting for it to bud. It has the face of the prophet there, if you could say. And this is and in Paleo Hebrew, I have the Shema there in Paleo Hebrew. And that is my staff there. That's what we lean on. That's why all the workers are called the staff, because leaders lean on the staff, people, to do their work. I couldn't do this work by myself. In fact, without Kendra, I would probably be lost. So I always thank Kendra because, I love my daughter because not only she's my daughter, but she's my number one staff. Same thing with Richard. I don't know what I'm doing without Richard now. We're praying that he gets healed so that Adonai could allow him to serve again. Without a staff, no pastor, no leader can live without. When we were talking about the branch, the staff that budded, it gave me the idea that Yeshua is the branch. When the olive tree died, the olive tree of Israel died, Yeshua was the branch that became alive again. Isaiah 11:1. Then a shoot, a choted, will spring from the stem of Yesse, and a branch, a netzer, from his roots, from the shoresh, and will bear fruit. When I shall raise up for David a righteous branch, I will cause, the branch of righteousness to grow up unto David. Behold, I will bring forth my servant the branch. Behold, the man whose name is the branch. Yeshua is the branch. Excuse me. When the olive tree of Israel, from Jeremiah 11:15, Romans 11:15, it died. The branches were cut off and thrown in the fire. But but a netzer, a branch, came out, and that was Yeshua, and restarted the olive tree again. From the dead branches, that is Israel, the national Israel, Adonai regrafted 12, 70, 123,000 and started up the olive tree of Israel again, the Kehillah, the body Messiah. Israel is not the national people, the blood Israelites or the blood Jews. That's not the Israel of Elohim. The Israel of Elohim is every born again believer. You all here are the Israel of Elohim. You are the body of Messiah. You are his Israel. Yeah, there's other Israel's been. There's an Israel that we support, that we pray for the peace of Jerusalem today. But that is a secular state. That is not Adonai's Israel. In fact, they are in rebellion. They are a secular, many times atheistic people. We need to pray for the salvation of every Jewish person, for the salvation of secular Israel today. We need to pray for their salvation, that they come into the new covenant. Because remember, Adonai only works with covenants. And if you're in the new covenant, you're under Adonai's will. If you're not under the new covenant, you are not under Adonai's will. Because remember, we're not under the Mosaic covenant now. We're under the new covenant. And so we need to follow new covenant. That's why we say we're Mosaic, because we follow what Adonai gave us in the foundation. We are Messianic because we follow Messiah Yeshua. And we're apostolic because we follow what the apostles taught us, what Paul tells us. We are obedient to Moses. We're obedient to Messiah. We're obedient to the apostles. But we're not obedient, and we don't follow the man-made laws and man-made traditions, the leaven of the Pharisees, as Yeshua called it. In fact, Paul calls it even the dung. He calls it. And we don't follow those. We follow what Scripture should say. Now, the priests and Levites, we are told here in Numbers 18:21, and behold, I have given the children of Levi all the tenth in Israel for an inheritance, for their ministry for which they serve, even the ministry of the tabernacle of the congregation. So Levi also includes Aaron and his sons and all the Levites. So the tenth, the tithe, belongs to the ministers. The tabernacle was furnished with the half shekel. The half shekel was to pay for upkeep and maintenance of the tabernacle. But the tithe went to the leadership. It went to those that were serving the tabernacle. The Hebrew word for tithe is ma'asra, the tenth part. The Greek word is dekatu, and apodekatu also means 1/10. Now the principle of the tithe, and again today, today there's all kinds of people saying, well, don't tithe. In fact, I've had even some of our members come up and tell me, I don't tithe because I don't believe in tithing. And that's okay. It's up to you. A Abram or Abraham gave him a tenth of everything. Now, he didn't have to. It is incumbent upon the person, and here Abram or Abraham gives Melchizedek, the king of righteousness, a tenth of everything, all the spoils he got. Of all the spoils, he gave him a tenth, just out of his heart. Yaakov says, and I shall faithfully give you a tenth part of everything you give me. So technically, a tenth part of everything that Adonai gives to me, a tenth part of everything, we give to Adonai. Now, it's not just a tenth part of the income of your check. It's what comes in, the harvest that comes in, that we give unto Adonai. Now, Paul goes on in the New Covenant Scriptures. Remember, this is not just Mosaic. Here's where I say, I follow what Moses says, but I also follow what Yeshua says and what Paul says, or the apostles. Here in 1 Corinthians 9, 6 through 14, the Corinthians did not like giving funds to Paul. The Philippians did. In fact, that verse where it says that Adonai is going to supply all our needs according to his riches and glory, that's not a promise to everybody. He says that to the Philippians because they sent him some funds when the Corinthians wouldn't. And he says, because you've sent me this blessing, then Adonai is going to bless you. Bless you. Are Barnabas and I the only ones who have no right to stop working? What soldier would ever serve in the army at his own expense? Nobody would. And who is there who would plant a vineyard and never eat the fruit from it? Or would keep a flock and not feed on the milk from his flock? Do not think that this is merely worldly wisdom. This is not of the world. Does not the Torah say exactly the same? It is written in the Torah of Moses, you must not muzzle an ox when it's treading out the corn or the grain. Is it about oxen that Elohim is concerned here? Or is it not said entirely for our sake in the new covenant? Clearly, it was written for our sake in the new covenant. Because it is right that whoever plows should plow with the expectation of having his share, and whoever threshes should thresh with the expectation of having his share. If we have sown the seed of spiritual things in you, is it too much to ask that we should receive from you a crop of material things? Others have been given such rights over you, and do we not deserve more? In fact, we have never exercised this right. On the contrary, we have put up with everything rather than obstruct the gospel of Messiah in any way. Do you not realize that the ministers in the temple get their food from the temple, and those who serve at the altar can claim their share from the altar? In the same way, Adonai gave the instruction that those who preach the gospel should get their living from the gospel. I don't know how those typos got in there, but sorry about that. But it's the gospel. So Adonai, not only in the first covenant, when he's saying these things in the first covenant, in Torah, in today's parashah, it's not just for them, it's for the leaders today, for those that are doing the work of the ministry. And again, there's a lot of people that cannot understand this. Watch what Paul tells Timothy. Elders who do their work well while they are in charge. In what? In charge. Oh, I don't need anyone in charge. I don't need nobody over me. Jesus is over me. I only follow Jesus. Yeah, but Yeshua gave us leaders. Who are in charge are to be given double reward, especially those who work hard at preaching and teaching. As Scripture says, you must not muzzle an ox when it is treading out the corn. And again, the worker deserves his wages. 1 Thessalonians 5:12. We appeal to you, my brothers, to be considerate of those who work so hard among you as your leaders in Adonai, and those who admonish you. Have the greatest respect and affection for them because of their work. Be at peace among yourselves. There is such a thing as leadership. In the Mosaic covenant and in the new covenant, both covenants have leadership, different styles of leadership, but leadership nonetheless. Now, we also have offerings for the poor, 1 Corinthians 16 and 2 Corinthians 9. And about the collection for the saints, as I have given orders to the congregations in Galatia. After the first Sabbath, let each of you put aside and keep in his house whatever he can afford, that there not be collections when I come. And when I arrive, whoever you select, I will send through these epistles to carry your donation to Jerusalem. So Paul not only said you need to support your leaders, but there has to be offerings for the poor. And the poor is usually the widow, the orphan, proselytes who came into and became part of Israel. Today we have also a group of women that would be called single women, that have been abandoned by their husbands, that we consider as widows if they've been abandoned by their husband. And so offerings for the poor are always needed, as I said last week. And thank you all for your donations for our funds for giving love offerings. Now, the practical application of the tithing principle is that you should give your tithe and offerings in the place where you have your primary spiritual allegiance, where you are fed spiritually, where you are prayed for, where you are sustained, comforted, and supported. Now, for those of you that are listening on YouTube, do not send me your tithes unless this is your first primary place of study. Your tithe should go to your congregation because your pastor deserves your tithe. Because if something were to happen you're living in Ohio or Iowa, Davenport, Iowa, and you can't call me and says, "Oh, Pastor, can you come to my house and pray for me?" Or can you, my son passed away, can you come? I can't do that. Your pastor can. So he deserves your tithe. I don't. You're welcome to send me any offerings you can or you want. You don't have to. That's up to you. But we thank you for any offerings that you give us. But remember, your primary place is where? Where you are fed personally, where you are discipled, where a pastor could say, "Oh, I need to correct you on this." He's the one that deserves your tithe. Now, what's the difference between tithes and offerings? A tithe is 10%. It is given as a deliberate act of avodah, worship or service, of what a person has received from their income, from their increase, from their harvest. Less than 10% is an offering, not a tithe. If you give, $100, That's an offering, because you might have received $5,000. More than 10% is a tithe plus an offering. By the way, we're not talking just about money. Today, we usually use money. Remember, in biblical times, it was grain, it was bread. In fact, I think, was it last week or a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the 3 offerings for the Cohens and the Levites, which was what? Do you all remember that? It was a carne asada, it was the menudo, and the barbacoa. Those are the 3 offerings that they gave according to Deuteronomy for the priesthood and the Levites. I'm happy. It's not just money, it's things. And again, it's not discards. Oh, I don't need this broken TV no more. Pastor, I have a TV here. You probably need to fix it, but no. Thank you all for, we just got a new TV. We're in the back. We're going to set it up. Thank you for that. And like that, it's working. It works. It's not something that is no good no more. Thank you. Anything could be used as a tithe. I know a lot of people won't like that. They want silver, $1,000. Contrary to statements made about Messianic congregations in general, these are made by anti-Messianic websites. We ourselves here do not receive any financing, any donations from any Christian. Oh, I see how that happened. I did a global change in it. Christ was from Christian congregation, organization, or mission. We are an autonomous congregation and completely supported by you all. We don't get anything from the outside, any organization or any funds that are sent to us. We have a number of you. Thank you, Sonny, and some of you others that send us finances. Thank you all through PayPal. Go to our website, olivetreefellowship.com here in Albuquerque, and you could support us through there. Now, New Covenant leadership. New Covenant leadership is centered on the local congregation, not extra local, but local. There's the episcopoi, what would be the nasi, supervisor, overseer, bishop. That's me. The presbyteroi, the zaken, those elders, the poyain, the ra'a, a shepherd, a pastor. So every pastor is a elder, a supervisor, and we have pastors or elders that might not be supervisors, but we have this type of leadership in congregations today. Now, there are qualifications for leaders in the New Covenant, and I would encourage you to go through these qualifications. To be an elder and to be a deacon, there are qualifications, and we encourage those of you that would like to serve. In fact, we're looking for some elders and deacons that you go through Timothy and Titus also, Titus 1-5, and look at the qualifications and see if you qualify. I urge the elders among you, as a fellow elder myself, and a witness to the sufferings of Messiah, and as one who is to have a share in the glory that is to be revealed, give a shepherd's care to the flock of Elohim that is entrusted to you. Watch over it, not simply as a duty, but gladly as Elohim wants, not for sordid money, but because you are eager to do it. Do not lord it over the group which is in your charge, but be an example to the flock. When the chief shepherd appears, you will be given an unfading crown of glory. In the same way, younger men, be subject to the elders. Humility towards one another must be the garment you all wear constantly, because Elohim opposes the proud and accords his favor to the humble. Here was a problem with Korach. Korach was proud. He thought he was just in the even with Moses and Aaron. He wasn't. Obey your leaders and give way to them. They watch over your souls, because they must give an account of them. Make this a joy for them and not a grief. You yourselves would be the losers. Obey your who? Your leaders. It says they watch over your souls. My responsibility is to watch over your soul. By the way, your responsibility is to not watch over my soul. In fact, a lot of people feel that they have to watch over the pastor's soul. The pastor watches over the soul of the flock. It says they must give an account. I'm going to give an account for me when that day comes, but I will give an account how I treated each and every one of you. By the way, you will not give an account for me, but I will give an account for you. And it's important that we together work this out. Like it says, don't be a dictator. Don't lord it over the flock. And by the way, there's deacons in the new covenant also. New covenant. By the way, Israel should be following this right now. If Israel was under Adonai's obedience today, they would be following this model, not the model of rabbis and all these people. That's a non-biblical model. This is the biblical, because we're living in new covenant times. We're not living in the days of the first covenant. Remember, Adonai gave us a new covenant. We are in new covenant time. This is the model we follow. And there's also rules for the deacons. And so one of the things that we need to do is follow the ways of Adonai. Let's go ahead and stand before Adonai. And be praying again for my laryngeal spasms that I've been getting, and that Adonai would bring a complete healing and heal this Agent Orange stuff. In the name of Yeshua. Yeverechecha Yahweh ba'ish merecha. Ayir Yahweh panav elecha v'yichunecha. Asa Yahweh panav elecha v'yasem lecha. Shalom. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May Yahweh lift up the light of his countenance upon you and give you his peace. Shalom, shalom. Have a good day.
Shalom, shalom. Welcome to Olive Tree Fellowship and Torah Unleashed Ministries. Thank you for joining us on our channel. If you have enjoyed this teaching and would like to see more, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to click the notification bell so that you can be notified when we have new videos. If you would like to support Olive Tree Fellowship and Torah Unleashed Ministries, please visit us at olivetreefellowship.com or torahunleashed.org. We thank you for your past support and hope to continue with you. Shalom, shalom. Have a good day. Shalom, shalom y bienvenidos a Olive Tree y a la Torah Desatada. Les doy gracias a ustedes y a Adonai por su apoyo que nos han dado aquí. Y si quieren continuar a hacer una donación, pueden ir aquí en TorahUnleashed.org o en olivetreefellowship.com y ahí pueden dar una donación. Su apoyo, su ayuda es importante en estos días. Shalom, shalom.